Hi, this is Mike from Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To, and on today's video I'm going to take a look at an ultra budget PC case which potentially you might think about purchasing. This is from a brand that I have no idea how to pronounce the name. It is spelled PCZZIO, so Pizzo, I think that is how it's pronounced, but let me know in the comments what you think it is. This is available on amazon.co.uk currently and is retailing for around about £30, £30 to £33. So yes, it is in the ultra budget category of cases, but it does actually have some pretty cool features and also comes included with a set of fans. They're potentially not great, but for those of you trying to build an ultra budget PC and you're not too concerned about the flimsiness of your case and also you like a little bit of the wood trim going on, then this potentially might be right up your street. Now, of course, as always, we will be putting affiliated links in the video description. So if you want to check out local pricing to you, please feel free to do so. I'm not sure if this is going to be available worldwide. Certainly it is here in the UK. We'll try and find some links for either something similar or very, very close for areas outside of the UK. So the model number of this case, if you're actually trying to search for it yourself, is a little bit confusing. On the actual box itself, it is actually called the H3. If you actually look on the instructions inside, it's also known as the H30X BTF, which is also strange because you'd think with the name like BTF, that would stand for back to front or the kind of pass-through connectors on the motherboard, which this doesn't have. So yeah, it's a little bit of a strange one, this one, but we'll go through today. We'll do a little bit of a teardown, take a look around inside, so then after, hopefully you can work out whether or not this is going to be suitable for your next ultra budget build, or maybe you want to build a NAS or just something inexpensive to play games on. So let's start off with the front panel. Now, if you're actually looking at the Amazon listing, you'll see that the Amazon pictures are, well, I believe they're representations, they're not the actual case. If you look closely at the front panel design, this mesh, actually on the Amazon page, the mesh looks to be very open, which is obviously great for airflow, but when you actually get it delivered, it's actually a very, very tight mesh on there. Certainly, it is the full size, so you are going to get some airflow through it, but it's not going to look and also breathe as well as it looks in the pictures. So that is the first downside. Secondly, we've got this wood effect trim at the bottom. So this is just plastic with a wood effect on it. I thought personally it was going to be a kind of cheap piece of vinyl which you could peel off, but it does actually appear to be a physical chunk of plastic, so it kind of is what it is. Obviously, if you don't like the wood trim, it's going to be very easy to use something like Fablon or sticky back plastic and just put a covering over it, or even just spray paint it if you wanted to. The front panel itself is actually relatively easy to remove, and if you just grab the pull handle on the bottom and give it a sharp tug, the panel comes off, and as you can see, the ventilation there, it's fine. It's not a high airflow by any means, but again, this is a budget orientated chassis. There's also some ventilation on the side section there and nothing at all on this side. And also you do notice here as well some of the flimsiness of the build. So this piece of plastic which runs top to bottom isn't actually joined to the front panel. You can see that is wiggling around there. It does appear that the whole thing can come apart relatively easily, including this panel at the bottom. So if you do want to take it out for spray painting, you could scuff it up with some Scotch-Brite and then maybe just give it a coat of paint if you wanted to. So yeah, not too bad, could be better, but certainly is acceptable. With that out of the way, you can see the first of the included fans. So in the front here, we've got two included fans which are apparently DC controlled, but they're actually on PWM plugs. Now that was one of the first things which struck me when I plugged this into the computer to get some idea of the readings. It would appear that the DC or PWM controller is a little bit barking mad. So if you use them in PWM mode, the fans click like crazy, which is obviously, I think, because the motor can't understand the PWM signal, so you get a little bit of a clicking from it. They still function and they still spin, they just sound awful. If you set it to DC in the BIOS, you do get better control and spin speed of somewhere up to around about 1000, 1100 RPM, lowest speeds of around about 600 to 700. But it does fluctuate wildly. So if you're using fan control software which monitors your RPMs, then potentially your readings are going to be completely out of whack. Now potentially, obviously, these are cheap fans. You could easily replace them should you wish to. They are included as part of the bundle price, so if you want to use them, that's entirely up to you. Personally, I would say for me, I don't like the noise of them, so I would probably replace them, but for you, it could be absolutely fine. Now when it does come to this front panel, you can actually install three 140mm fans apparently. So those can be shifted up and you can put one at the bottom, although the bottom section is going to be somewhat blocked by that wooden panel. It will still pull in a little bit of air, so if you do want to go for 3 140s on the front, you can do, or alternatively you can put in 3 120s. When it comes to radiator support on the front, it will support up to a 360mm radiator. Also, you can put in 280s, 240s, etc. It is also quite nice to see that a lot of the metal backing is actually being cut away, at least as much as possible, but still giving you the flexibility of either using 120 or 140mm fans. So let's shift around to the side section. So the side panel, fully enclosed. The hinged door is actually quite a nice addition, and there's a little pull tab there which you can remove. There is some protective coating on here as well, and the door actually swings pretty much all the way around and can be lifted off its hinges should you wish to. If you're building it and maybe moving it around, you don't want to damage it. To take the side panel off, or the glass panel off, just lift it off its hinges and you can put it to one side. Something I did notice as well, straight out of the box, there are magnets which actually allow the glass to close. So the magnets are just general purpose magnets which are glued to the glass. One of mine actually fell off in transit and was floating around down here somewhere, so I just had to use a little bit of glue, hence why you'll probably see there's a little glue mark there, and also there is one on the inside of the panel if you've seen that in any of the shots. So I've taken the front panel and the side panel off just to get a little bit more light in here. It is a little bit on the dark side. Actually, I'll remove the magnetic filter from the top, which is actually really hard to get off. It is actually recessed, so it isn't going to slip off accidentally, and it is held in place pretty firmly. Again, it's that kind of cheap mesh panel, which yeah, you can use if you want to. I would probably leave it off, to be honest with you, but the choice is entirely up to you. So as you can see inside, there is a recessed section for the motherboard itself, so it does fall back a little bit. So that does mean two things, one of which is going to be better for putting in air cooling equipment, so such as tower coolers. You have got capacity in here of up to 190mm for air coolers, which is absolutely massive. Graphics card wise, up to 360mm. So yeah, plenty of room for that sort of thing. But also what it gives you is, because the motherboard is recessed into here, you do actually have quite a bit of depth on the top there. So if you are planning on putting a radiator in the top section, then it is going to give you quite a lot of clearance. Unfortunately, due to the construction, you can't put a 360mm rad in the top, which is unfortunate. You can put one in the front. In the top, you're going to be limited to 240s. Potentially you could get a 280 in there, but it might be a little bit on the tight side. Either way, it's fine. You can also put in 2 120mm fans or 2 140mm fans. Again, with the case of being this sort of price, I can't see someone buying an expensive or an elaborate water cooling solution for a case which costs just over £30, but potentially you might do, so that is why I am warning you against it if you're planning on putting a 360 in the top, which a lot of people tend to do. When it comes to the bottom section, so the basement section is ventilated, and there is the potential to put in 2 120mm fans on this top section. Also, there's some mounting holes there as well, so if you do want to use a vertical mount GPU, you can do. There is also a vertical mount on the back. It is going to be rather close to the glass though, so I would probably suggest against it. Again, for people buying a case of this sort of price point, it's unlikely you're going to put in a vertical mount GPU kit, because that's going to cost you basically more than the case to actually implement, but the option is there should you want to. Also, when it comes to things like pass-throughs, you've got plenty of pass-throughs. Obviously at this price, no rubber grommets, and at the top you've got an area to pass through your EPS connections and also fan connections if you're putting fans in the top. And also at the back, you can see the included 120mm fan, which is designed to match the ones which are included at the front, which are 140s. You can put a 140 in the back as well, which I think they've probably missed out a trick there. It would have been nice to have 3 matching fans, at least that way when they're daisy chained together on their connection, they would all read similar RPM. That is something I also tested. The fans on their own with the connections, still the RPM is completely shot to pieces. We were getting some very strange readings either using the fans individually or daisy chained together. So I was thinking maybe it was something to do with the daisy chain, but it does seem to be something actually kind of slightly weird with the PWM or RPM controller built into the fans. Also at the front, again, if you're putting a radiator in here, there is a little bit of a cutout there, giving you a bit of room, about 55mm, so radiator and fans should be fine there. Again, do take a look. There is also a drive tray at the bottom as well, so if you are thinking about a 360mm rad, you'll probably have to remove the drive tray as well, just to give you that extra clearance. So I think that is pretty much it for the interior. Let's swing around to the back side. So from the back here, you can see it's obviously just a normal ATX layout. You've got your IO shield section, space here for the 120mm fan, which is included, or 140 if you want to expand on that. You've also got the 7 PCI Express blanking plates. Those are captive ones, so you'll have to fold those out. Although actually in the accessories bag, there is actually a spare one, just one, which is a little bit tight, I think, personally, but it is a cheap case. Get some cable ties and all the screws to assemble your PC. Also on the back, you'll notice, as we said, there is an option for a vertical GPU mount. So that is on some thumb screws. Just undo that and this panel will come out, he says. So slide up and it comes out. You see there's little teeth at the bottom which attach in the bottom. So yeah, that's okay. Again, I would probably advise against vertical mounting a GPU in here, but if you want to, at least the option is there. Power supply section at the bottom, so standard ATX layout there. You've got ventilation options of either above or below, so you can put your power supply in either way, although you don't have the mountings on the cutout to do that, so you might have some trouble mounting it if you do it upside down. You may want to, because the ventilation in the bottom isn't great. Moving around to the back side, so just a standard plain panel, although I did notice there's some strange tolerances. Again, this is a relatively cheap case. I think the case might be bent at the top here, because there was actually a little bit of a gap between this panel and the top, which weirdly, because the back panel, actually, if we can get it out, is actually pretty rigid. There are some strengthening bars around the top and the bottom and also around the edge there. So the panel itself is actually fine, but it does appear that I think this case is a little bit bent. There is a little bit of flex in it. I could bend that back into shape, but I don't think I'll bother. But maybe you can see it on the camera. There's a definite sort of hump around this section here. Again, it's a cheap case, so it's one of those things. Also, while we're looking in the back here, so you've got your pass-throughs. There isn't a lot of room here, so power supply wise, you may need to consider what power supply you're getting. Ideally, you're going to want to use one with the flattened cables, just to give you a fighting chance of getting the cables up. This section here, obviously, because the motherboard is recessed, ideally, you're going to want to run your cables from the power supply and kind of up around here, and then into your EPS, or if it's a flat one, you might be able to just drape it across there. Again, there isn't a great deal of room. In the side channels, there is a bit more room, around about an inch, but on here, there isn't a great deal, maybe 8, 9, 10 mil. You have got this section here for mounting 2 SSDs or 2.5-inch drives. So those generally come in sort of 7 mil roughly. So if you take that into account, there isn't really a lot of room there. Although the case back panel does come out very slightly. Just, yeah, do bear that in mind. There isn't a lot of working room in the back. You've got a massive cutout there for gaining access to the back of your CPU cooler, should you wish to. Probably more relevant to older AM4 systems or Intel systems where they use a backplate. With AM5, it's going to be absolutely fine because you won't have to touch that at all because it's a lot easier. Looking at the cabling, so you've got the connections from the fans there, kind of daisy chained. So through there, they are DC, but they have got a PWM plug, which was a little bit confusing at first. Also, when it comes to connectivity, you've got your HD audio, so standard deal there. You also got USB 2 internal header, so that means there's USB 2 ports, which isn't great. Also, you've got a power button, and also, strangely on this case, there is actually a RGB or LED button. No LED fans included or controllers, so there is an option there. There is a button on the top, but nowhere to actually physically connect it. When it comes to the actual front panel connections, you've got the power button, reset button, hard drive LED and power LED, so usual deal there. And also you've got a single solitary lonely USB 3 connection for a USB type A, which is 5 gigabits per second. With those out of the way, you can see inside of the PSU basement, and you've got hard drive storage there, so 3.5-inch drive inside the caddy. You can put a 2.5 on the top, or if you want to, you can remove it. It's also on a thumb screw as well, which is done up extremely tight, but if you undo it, you can move the position back a little bit if you're putting a radiator in the front, although that is going to be coming very close to your power supply, so kind of do bear that in mind. Other than that, I think it's absolutely fine. Just do be careful with this power supply wise. If you've got one with braided cables, you really are going to struggle, so do try to get a power supply with flat cables if at all possible. While we're in this section, let's take a look at the bottom. So again, we've got that screw there, so you can move the drive cage back around about an inch. You've also got this mesh filter. The mesh filter is, again, really tight mesh, which potentially might be harmful for the power supply. The power supply basement is only just holes in there. So yeah, that could be a little bit on the awkward side. And if we try to remove this a little bit without taking that screw out, you can see it's just round hole mesh. So when you put on top Fine mesh on top of whole mesh is basically going to suffocate your power supply a little bit, so potentially for some of you, you may want to remove that screw, pull out the mesh filter in its entirety, and to be honest with you, I would probably just leave that in the box or throw it away or whatever. So you've got a bit of mesh there. You also got the fan mounting options, and strangely, I don't know why they've got a fan mounting option on the bottom, but you can put what appears to be a 140mm fan there, which I don't quite understand why that is there, but it is. But anyway, got some feet on the bottom. They raise it up a nice bit, around about 20mm, and also you've got some foam on there as well to stop it leaving marks on your desk. So yeah, overall it's not too bad. I've seen much worse. The PSU has got a fighting chance of getting some air in it, but I would strongly suggest removing the mesh filter, or at least just most of it, just so you can get a bit of air into your power supply. If we move back to the top of the case, so you can see there's the same sort of whole mesh on there, which isn't ideal for airflow, but it's okay, it's fine. You can put, like I said, two 120s or two 140s, or potentially a 280mm rad. It's going to be tight. 240 I think would be a much better option, although realistically I think for this type of case probably air cooling is the way to go anyway, just to save a few quid if you're in the budget market anyway. Power button on the front. You've also got your reset button. You've got that single solitary USB 3 Type A, two USB 2s Type A's. Been a while since I've seen those on a case. You've got individual headset and mic jacks. That is actually quite a nice thing. And also you've got the somewhat redundant RGB button, which is just a 2-pin switch. So you could use it as a reset switch if you wanted to, or connect it up to a standalone hub. We've done reviews on many hubs where you can actually put in a cable to that to cycle through RGBs, that kind of stuff. So it's okay. It doesn't do anything particularly well, but it is really cheap. So it is kind of one of those things. So there we go, got it all back together, and yeah, just putting it back together, you do kind of realise that it is quite flimsy, and also things like the front panel there, when you remove the glass, there's a bit of flex there, and then that doesn't really want to go back in, so you have to kind of push it up a little bit. So yes, it is a flimsy case, although I must say, I actually do quite like the design of it. The aesthetics themselves are actually not unpleasant. I would say though, this is somewhat of one of a, well, probably a catfish case. So it shows you on the advertisement what you think you're getting, but actually when it turns up in real life, it's just a little bit different. Again, it is around about £30, so it's not an extraordinary outlay. Just obviously, if you are considering this, just do be aware that it is quite flimsy. It's going to be slightly challenging to build on, and the fans aren't particularly great. They're fine, but they're not as good as what you'd think if you looked at the original picture. So I think that is pretty much it for this case. Let me know what you think about it in the comments section below. Alternatively, if you've got any better solutions for a budget type case, please feel free to let us know in the comments of ones that we can get into review, or alternatively you can head over to our Discord and post them in the bargains no chat or in the video suggestions section. That we would be very grateful of. I think that's going to pretty much wrap this one up. Hopefully you've enjoyed the video. If you have, smash that like button. If you want to see more content like this on a daily basis, maybe consider hitting subscribe, and then don't forget to hit the notifications icon. That way you'll be notified of future video releases. But for now, I've been Mike. This is Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To, and hopefully we'll catch you in the very next video. Thanks for watching.